The NFL draft is almost upon us, so it's time to start learning our rookies, and we start on this show with our QBs. And Ed, there's one big name who is dominating the headlines, and obviously it is Mr. Fernando Mendoza. Let's start saying it's a little bit of an underwhelming group of quarterbacks this year. It's not like the years where we have 3 or 4 we're quite excited about. We can argue who is best. It's clearly Mendoza this year. By default, he's nailed on. Pick one to the Raiders. We've just, at the time of recording, we've just seen the news that Kirk Cousins is joining the Raiders as well. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. Are you excited, though, for the QBs this year or not, Ed?
No, I'm not, Mark.
Like I said, we should move straight on.
Yeah, well, not. It feels like, we should end the show there. There is something to talk about. But if I said I was excited, I'd be lying.
Well, let's look at some of the strengths of Mendoza then. So his pass placement on short and intermediate passes is excellent, and his timing is absolutely top tier. It's a proper cliche this time of year, but that footballing IQ really is an absolute quality of Mendoza. He's patient when working through those progressions, which to have sought at such a high level on your way into the NFL is absolutely a plus. He's a really intelligent player. For me, all I'm basing some of my concerns about is I'm just not getting good, not great vibes from him throughout, really. He lacks that top rushing upside for fantasy value. He's got 276 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2025. That might sound appealing, but 5 of those touchdowns came in absolute blowout games, including a 73-0 victory against the Indiana State Sycamores. I don't see his rushing skill set transferring to the NFL in any meaningful way. Another question mark is only 3% of his snaps have been taken from under center and noticeably struggled under play action passing. So he's down 2 yards per attempt in play action versus non-play action. Why is that so important? That play action pass has been an absolute staple of the QB offense. I've got as well we said Kirk Cousins. He's a bit of a Kirk Cousins style of character to me. I think he's the sort of player that will probably, because of his intelligence, because he seems to be a grafter, that he will work his way to a really steady role and be a constant fringe QB1, QB2. I mean, the next question is, Ed, are the Raiders as bad as we actually think they are?
Well, I think last year they were worse maybe than we even expected. They were pretty insipid, especially on offense. Well, they weren't that much better on defense either. But yeah, they really struggled last year. I mean, on paper, they've got Genty, they've got Bowers. Genty slightly underwhelmed last year. It will be interesting to see what they do with an upgrade at quarterback, which Cousins would be and Mendoza would be. So, he could move. I think he will move them on to a slightly more impressive level.
I mean, the O-line has been strengthened a bit. The addition of Tyler Linderbaum at center is a huge upgrade. I'm gutted to see him go as a Ravens fan, but that is a brilliant gift for Mendoza. So he said that draft range team, he's going, unless there is an absolute groundbreaking trade for the ages coming up, which I don't think there is going to be a Raider. I think my concern is wide receiver core, Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, Jack Besh. Something's probably going to happen there. And I said for fantasy outlook, I think I'm capping expectations this year. QB 12-16 range. That depends if he's starting. With that sign of Cousins, that does fit the narrative coming out of the Raiders that potentially he wasn't going to be seen as a week 1 starter anyway. Maybe he's going to earn his way into the starting lineup. Also, actually, to be fair to the Raiders, a little bit of protecting a rookie quarterback, which we don't see a huge amount of, and give him a chance to grow into it rather than slinging him into the fire day one. Yeah, I think it's going to go too high for me in rookie drafts in Dynasty because there's always going to be someone who needs a QB is going to pay up a little bit more. Genuinely for me, and this kind of comes from for the rest of the QBs we're about to talk about, if I'm QB needy, I'm probably trading for a QB rather than gambling on Mendoza. What about you? Would you be happy taking Mendoza, or would you rather be looking elsewhere if you were QB needy somewhere?
Yeah, I think there are too many question marks, and I think the Cousins signing just throws a few more into the mix as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, as you've articulated, Mendoza is very solid, and I think he will go on to have a very solid NFL career as a starter, not as a backup. So, yeah, there's not the excitement of your previous Jaden Daniels, Drake Mays, etc. With Mendoza, but he is the standout in this class. But I think that maybe says more about the rest of the QB class rather than his eliteness.
Yeah, 100%. And before we move on to those, if you're joining us for the first time or you've been here a few times before, please do take a moment to give us a subscribe, a like, and a share. We're with you throughout the whole of the off season and then into next year as well. Next up, though, Ed, the next man up in that class is Mr. Ty Simpson. Now, Ty Simpson, a player that he wasn't guaranteed that he'd actually declare this year. He's been a big faller in draft value projection. So according to Mock Draft Database, which basically compiles all mock drafts going on to kind of get that consensus big board, he was as high as pick 5 at the start of that mock draft window in January. And yes, that is always out compared to where it ends up. But he's now dropping to the stage where he may be a late round 1 pick. He may not be a round 1 pick. We shall see. Let's look at some of those strengths, though. He's composed and consistent in the middle of the field. And when he gets those tight outside windows, he's quite competent as well. He's solid in short field, thirds down, where urgency needed. It doesn't unsettle him as well. He can kind of cope with a little bit of pressure to move the ball into those shorter areas. Quality arm strength when he's got a solid base. I'll come back onto that shortly as well. And quick feet to evade pressure and buy time to make a play. But when he is evading that pressure, when he doesn't get his feet set right, his accuracy is all over the place. He's a player that has got to have everything right for his mechanics for it to come off. He's not that kind of great improviser as we've seen from our top NFL QBs. He can also turn the ball over too often as well. And sometimes he needs to learn to take a shorter loss on the play than give away the ball entirely further down the field. Now, with Ty Simpson, this is where we get to the quality of the rest of the class. Let's be clear. He couldn't oust Jalen Milroe in 2024. He has 15 starts, and last season he looked exceptional. He was everything he did was just was absolutely coming up Simpson every single time. Second half, he just looked lost. If you look at a highlight package, first half, second half, it's like you're watching a completely different player. Games 1 to 8, he completed 67.8% of his throws for 8.4 yards per attempt and a touchdown rate of 7.66%. Over the final 7, that fell to 60.4% completions, 6.5% yards per attempt, so almost 2 yards down, and only 3.77 touchdown percentage rate as well. So we're seeing a very small sample size, and that sample size is very much a heads and tails sort of season. We've seen some brilliant stuff. We've seen some awful stuff. And I honestly think it could be a player that, I'll be honest, we talk very little about after the main hype comes and goes from a fantasy relevance point of view, and maybe even from an NFL relevance point of view for me. I think it's a bit of a project QB. Am I being me? I feel like I've been gone a bit heavy on Ty Simpson there. What are your thoughts on him?
No, I think you're perfectly fair. There's definite positives there. I think the issue that I've got with the quarterbacks this year is I don't know who is quarterback hungry enough to take a punt with anyone after Mendoza, because the Jets, wisely or not, seem to have taken a role with Geno Smith. Are the Cardinals happy with Jacoby Brissett? I mean, we talked him up a lot in the second half of last year, and I'd be happy to do with that. And then you've got a number of teams who are pretty sorted at quarterback. So, like you say, very much a project. I don't see anywhere he goes and starts day one. It's just not going to happen. And then does he have the talent to learn his trade and, make a name for himself somewhere? I don't know. But yeah, you're right. From a fancy point of view, I can't see him making any sort of impact next season, barring injuries somewhere.
Yeah, looking at mock draft database, his currently consensus pick is pick 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He could well go in round 1. He is not a round 1 talent, though. I think that is really clear. He will go round 1 if someone gets an itchy trigger finger and thinks, we need to get our QB here. And then the other teams, the ones you've mentioned, Jets, Cardinals. I mean, why not for the Browns throw another quarterback into the mix now? Deshaun Watson seems to have all been forgiven under Todd Monken. They're all popular picks for him in mock drafts as well at the moment. For me, he's best in a situation, as you've said, he can sit year 1, he can hone his craft, he can learn from someone, and then look towards year 2. And that's why I think Pittsburgh's probably his best spot, and learning from Aaron Rodgers for a year. If Aaron Rodgers is happy to be tutor and put his ego to one side for a season, we shall see. But yeah, next year, absolutely fancy irrelevant. If you pick him up, is if you've got a big enough bench in Dynasty, leave him there or stick him in your taxi squad. Redraft, unless there's a significant injury, we're not going to be talking about him. Moving on then, Ed, let's have a look at the chances of success that we have for these players that are likely to fall out of round 1. So, a question for you, Ed. Over the last decade, how many quarterbacks that were drafted outside of round 1 have gone on to have a level of success, NFL and or fantasy? So the whole of the last 10 years, every quarterback drafted outside round 1, how many have found success?
Right, a decade. You'd expect like one most years with a few, I'd say about 6 or 7.
Absolutely not. It's 3.
3, wow.
Dak Prescott, round 4, 2016. Jalen Hurts, round 2, 2020. And then very much an outlier, Brock Purdy, round 7 in 2022. That is it. Yes, there are a few who have had their games here and there, but knowing you've ever started your plan A, a Drew Lock, for example, we saw have a couple of games here and there. No one ever played him with any confidence. To be confirmed this year, let's be fair, Malik Willis, round 3, 2022. He's getting a second go at it this year. Could he add into that list? And then we've also got Tyler Shook and Shadur Sanders. They've got a season left to prove it as well. So we could add to that list. But even then, say we throw 2 more in, 5 in 10 years, it is very, very slim chances. So if Ty Simpson slips, it does not look good. And to build the excitement for our next 2 players, that is why I am already out on Garrett Nussmeier. Look at him then. So the LSU quarterback struggled with injury massively in 2025, played through an undiagnosed abdominal injury. So the stats up on the screen there are 2024 stats, not last year's stats. Last year, he had just under 2,000 yards, 67.4% completion, 12 touchdowns. So those numbers don't seem fair to judge him by. He was struggling with that injury. Looking at his strengths, quick delivery, decent anticipation. He handles pressure well and is sensible. Where we spoke about kind of Ty Simpson is perhaps a little bit too big play happy. What Nussmeier is good at is looking for the check down and protecting and preserving the drive when he needs to. His placement on fades and when he's thrown into a contested catch situation is solid and leads some absolute highlight reel catches from his wide receivers. The other way to look at that is his wide receivers have absolutely pulled him out of a hole and pulled up some fantastic catches. Let's be fair with our balance. Weaknesses, he lacks athleticism and struggles to extend plays under pressure. He seems to regress in his play mechanics with deep ball plays from 2025. How much of that were the injuries? A bit of something he's seeing the more you watch him is how he tends to put the ball up really high, which leads to his wide receiver having to do that extra bit of work to get up to get the ball. But as soon as you're up getting the ball, you've then got to get back down to movement again. So he really limits the yard after catch productivity of his wide receivers at time as well. A little bit undersized and sometimes can gamble on a big play. So we've said earlier, in general, he's good at looking for the check down. But there's a time where he'll just go, you can see he's got what he's got in mind he wants to do, and he'll sling it. But when that goes wrong, it tends to lead to an interception, and that's why I ended up with the most interceptions of any QB in the class this year with 12. Are you getting yourself some Nussmeier, or was Joey B the last true great QB that LSU will ever see, Ed?
Well, yes, he was.
You ignoring Daniels then? We'll ignore Jaden Daniels completely.
Well, he's not in Joe Burrow's class. Anyway, it's not about Joe Burrow. Nussmeier, it's been interesting with Nussmeier. I've read a few articles. I don't know whether people are trying to have hot takes, as they often do at this time of year. That he's a bit of a sleeper pick, that he's the QB2. He's close to Mendoza. And he was playing under injury last season. And to an extent, I can see what they're getting at. He does have the potential, and clearly he was playing with injury last year. He had a good pro day. I think that impressed a lot of people, and that has pushed him up a few draft boards. I've seen him go to the Steelers in that 21st spot. But he's another one, like Ty Simpson, who is not a first-round quarterback, but might end up going in the first round if someone decides that he's worth that risk. And I think he would be a risk. He again looks okay without doing anything brilliantly. Someone who might well go in the first round, but he's not somebody who I think, from a fantasy point of view, I'm excited about at all.
No, I'd be surprised to see him go in the first round. I think mainly that's because you're looking at who is QB needy, and I think you look at the start of round 2, you've got the Jets and the Cardinals there. The issue would be maybe if the Cardinals fancied him and they tried to leapfrog the Jets and go back into the first round. Either way, I think we're agreed that doesn't really make sense. It is, let's get somebody. And I think, to be honest, this isn't about the 2027 draft class, but both teams would be far better waiting and using their round 1-2 picks elsewhere for that. Yeah, I think it'll be on taxi squads. He should absolutely be rostered in Dynasty, but on a taxi squad and not planning to use him at any point. Hopefully he's the sort of player that go, I've got Nussmeier there. I can now elevate him from my taxi squad, and hopefully he'll be some use to someone at some point. Finally, then, we're going to be moving on to Carson Beck, 23-year-old QB out of Miami. He landed in a great situation in Miami last year after 4 years in Georgia, and last year really did elevate his stock. His strengths can display pinpoint accuracy and has the highest completion percentage of any QB prospect this year, 72.4%. Really clever player who reads defenses well. Back to that old football IQ cliche. The weaknesses, though, is a proper confidence player, and he can be a little patchy when he loses rhythm. And what I mean by that is that when you watch some of the kind of extended highlights of different games, if he has something goes wrong or he makes an error, another one follows, and then the play sort of breaks down and drives can fall apart completely. And then he'll get back into kind of a rhythm again. And I think that's the sort of concern about kind of his character and his confidence, that maybe isn't coachable in quite the same way as some of the other traits. So I think there is definitely a project to be going on there. It also must be noted, we don't like to dwell on injuries, but there are a couple of significant injury cases in this draft class that we do need to take note of. He suffered a significant elbow injury to his throwing arm in 2024, which apparently, from people who know far better than I do, Ed, could cause durability issues and impact his longevity in the league as well. He could be a day 2, probably should be a day 3. I think once again, it'll be someone reaching if he goes day 2. I just think I could see someone doing that. And yet again, same as Nussmeier, for me, he is another taxi squad stash at best. Do you want yourselves any Beck?
No, not really. I find it very difficult to choose between him and Nussmeier. They seem very similar in terms of where they'll go. I know he's had meetings. He's had days with the Dolphins and the Jets. Certainly can't see the Dolphins using that 11th overall pick on him, but you'd be looking second round really at the earliest for him. But again, fantasy relevance, no, he's not going to have any.
No. So that we've got 4. I didn't go to a top 5 because I felt 4 was more than enough to look at in any depth, but I do have a couple of other notables, Ed. And first up is Taylor Green. Now, Taylor Green, my main note on him is he is a big boy, and I put it in capitals.
You have, yeah.
6'6", 227. Is a great runner of the ball as well. 779 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he's an absolute monster of a man. You look at so I'm just having a quick look at the combine results as well, because he really impressed there. 4.36 seconds when it came to the 40-yard dash, which once again, for a player of his size is
very fast.
And then for the vertical jump as well, 43.5 inches, 4 inches higher than any other QB as well. So athletic is that generic phrase that we give. He is certainly that. I just don't think, because he really lacks that top tier accuracy, he's not great at reading defenses. I don't think he's anyone we're going to see a huge amount of. He might be a nice complement for kind of bringing on to different packages, maybe for a team. He's not something we talk about too much. And then Drew Aller, he was really good on paper. Prototypical fame, decent arm strength, 3 years as a starter, but only ever seems to have a plan A for absolutely everything. As soon as that first read breaks down, he's not able to work through those progressions. And that's why I think for me, he's going to be a big note at the NFL level. Because if you've not got that down after you've been a 3-year starter, when is it ever going to come? At that point, is that a trait of yours that is uncoachable? Well, they are our QBs. He's back up on the screen. Mendoza is our main man and the man we will be targeting. Most say it looks very much like he is going to be a Raider. If you're watching at this point and it turns out it's not going to be a Raider, something amazing has happened, and we should be very grateful of that. But after that, Ty Simpson we're clutching at straws. So I think the best bit of advice we can give, Ed, if you are QB hungry and you are not a believer in Mendoza, you're trading away, aren't you, to try to get a QB elsewhere this season?
That's it, yeah. Find some value. There's some good value trades out there. You might have to test the market rather than waiting to invest in a rookie QB.
That is all from us then. We will be back in a couple of days for our rookie running back preview. That's all from me. It's all from Ed. So for now, ta-ta and farewell.